What's going on, everybody? It's me, Ben. I am live here on Have at It. This is episode 91. How's everybody doing tonight? Um, just thought I'd do a quick episode here. We all know in the next couple weeks we got the NFL draft coming up. That's always a very exciting time of year, especially during the off season where, as much as we love our football, um, you know, we gotta have something. And, you know, the NFL draft is kind of that off-season Super Bowl kind of feel. Um, you know, Other than the Super Bowl, this is like the second, maybe the third biggest event of the year, other than Super Bowl and opening night in the NFL. You know, the NFL draft has just become an event. Especially over the last decade, where I remember when the NFL draft used to be in New York at Radio City Music Hall, and then it started moving out of New York and started going to different cities, different parts of the country. And it grew from like kind of an arena sized crowd to now where it's like, it's pretty much like, I don't know, this is a very old reference, but it's kind of like Woodstock. I mean, I'm not that old, but it just has that feel where just you have like, it's just like a week long festival. Um, so it's really cool, to see the draft, see the fans just, you know, crowds just line up and watch their team draft that, you know, what they hope is that game changer, that's going to turn around the franchise, even if, especially if you have a bad football team, whether you're like the Browns or the Jaguars, whatever team you have, you're hoping for that guy you want to bring in. That, oh my god, we got to get this guy. He's gonna turn our franchise around. Oh, we got to get him. We got to get. You're just so excited, and a lot of times you'll get that player you want, but then there's a lot of times where when Roger Goodell says a different name, and you're like, what? You know, why did the why did my team pick this guy? And then sometimes it turns out that the guy you don't want turns out to be pretty damn good. And then the guy you do want doesn't turn out so well. So it's fun. It's fun to like you know just as a fan, you just love to have that experience. And hopefully for everybody out there who's a fan of whoever their team is, whoever you want, um, the player you want to get, especially these top few picks. I mean, it's you hope you get that guy that you want, whether it's a quarterback or a defensive end or a linebacker or uh, an offensive lineman or a game changing wide receiver. Who knows? But it is a very fun time of year as a fan, because this is pretty much all you got until at least training camp. But yeah, you do have. I take that back. You got the schedule release that's coming out. Supposedly, from what I've hearing, probably around middle of May is when we should find out when that 2025 NFL schedule comes out. And that's become kind of an event in itself. The NFL Network makes it like a all night party. They go over every team, every opponent. We're gonna have 7 international games this year. I understand some of the teams are going to be hosting that. Obviously, the Jaguars they do every year. The Jets, I know, is one of those teams that are going to be hosting an international game. Oh, they'll be the designated home team. The Steelers, I believe, is another team. So I forget the rest, but that's just off the top of my head. But yeah, it's just very much fun. These next this few weeks, you got the draft and then the NFL release schedule. And then also, after that, then it's kind of a dead spot until training camp. So it should be very exciting the next few weeks. So that's why tonight is I'm going to do what's called Ben's mini NFL mock draft. And you know, I was going over it, and I was thinking, well, there's 32 picks in the first round. I'm not going to go through that. I don't want to bore you with, going over 32 uh, picks. So I'm just going to leave it to the top 10. I'm going to make this like my top 10 little mock draft. That's why I called it a mini mock draft. So why don't we go ahead and let's get right to it. Before we do, I do got a comment here on YouTube. Christopher Cole in the house. Thank you, Christopher, for tuning in tonight. He says, 1 week away from WrestleMania 41. Yeah, I think on my next episode I'll talk about that then. As we get closer to Mania. Can't wait to see it. It's always a fun time of year. 2 nights, Saturday and Sunday, the 19th and 20th. Cannot wait. Christopher, thank you for tuning in. So yeah. Let's get to my little mini mock draft. Yeah, so again, I thought about this, the last day or two, just looking at what the team needs, what I'm hearing and reading from the top 10 teams that are picking what they're gonna do. Some of it's kind of obvious, but I do have a little surprise kind of little trade that I put in there that I think could happen. Now I'm not saying it will happen, but again, it could very well happen. It's always possible. We always see teams moving up into the draft. If there's a player they really want to get, but they may not be there before it's their turn to pick, they're going to try and make a trade, try to get up there so they can get their guy. And it takes two to tangle. The other team may not want to trade down, or they may get a better offer from somebody else. So it's a lot of little scenarios that goes on each and every year at this time in the NFL draft. So, with that being said, let's go over my mock draft, my little Ben's mini NFL mock draft. So, the Tennessee Titans own the number one pick in this year's draft. This is a team that's in the last couple of years has been on the downhill trajectory, and head coach Brian Callahan, his first year last year, it was a tough one, and they were unfortunately got the number one pick with the worst record, and the team just did not play well all year long. Just who's their quarterback is. They had Levis in there. They had Mason Rudolph, who's now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it was just a mess, and Mike Vrabel was let go the year before. So Brian Callahan, who came over from Cincinnati, was the OC for Zach Taylor. It was a tough first year. So, now he's got the number one pick. I've always been a big advocate of trading that pick, trying to get more picks. Now, with Tennessee, they need a lot of things. Obviously, they do need a quarterback, but they also need, an offensive lineman or two. They need a wide receiver. I don't think Trayvon Burks is it, in my opinion. You traded away A.J. Brown a couple years ago, and now he's got a Super Bowl ring with the Philadelphia Eagles. You got Tony Pollard, but as a running back, but he's not a number one. Solid, but not a guy, replacing Derrick Henry. Nobody can do that. But you also you traded Ernest Jones, your top linebacker, to Seattle. Now you need a linebacker. You need a lot of things. That's why I'm an advocate for possibly trading this pick down, only because I feel like this quarterback class isn't the greatest. You don't have that surefire day one starter in this draft. Now, really, there's really no NFL rookie quarterback's is considered a great NFL day one starter, by a lot of experts. It's rare that you see somebody come in and just, light the world on fire. And, I know Jaden Daniels did that last year. Yeah, CJ Stroud did it the year before, but it's really more of a exception than the rule, in my opinion. So, Um, Sean Spencer is in the house. Sean, what's going on, my man? Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate that. How you doing tonight, sir? Down there in Virginia. Um, let's see. Sean says, I think if Washington isn't sold on anyone, we should trade down. Yeah, I mean, for the first time in a while, you guys are not even in the top 10 or the top 20. I mean, that's pretty amazing. I mean, so you guys got a lot of stuff going on. Um, for you guys, it's more like a draft with like depth. Mainly, you need depth more than anything else. And you could probably use another wide receiver. Maybe another uh, I think you do need a defensive end or defensive back, I should say. So, um, you know, Forbes, I don't think is it, but we'll see how they do it. But like I said, Sean, if you just tuned in, anybody else has just tuned in, you're watching this on the Ben Zone on Facebook as well as on my YouTube channel, Ben Cornett 9015. So the oh great, lost my train of thought there. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so this is my little mini draft. Again, it's just going to be a top 10. It's not going to be like a top 32, anything like that, just because I don't want to bore you guys all night. So here we go. Oh wait, we got one more comment here on YouTube. It's Tampa Bay Rays fan tuning in. Thanks, Tampa Bay Rays fan for tuning in. Stroud lit the world on fire his rookie year, but he took a step back last season. It looked that way for sure. TB Rays fan, but you also got to look at the guy had no offensive line. He had a terrible line. He got sacked, I think, over 30 times last year, if I'm not mistaken. That's the recipe for disaster. No quarterback's going to survive a bad offensive line. I don't care how good they are. And they got to improve that this year. Now, Texans made some moves that I thought were kind of questionable. Like not addressing line. Hopefully they do that in the draft, but they traded Ray Tunsil, I believe. So that was kind of bizarre. I don't know, but I feel like Stroud was last year more of a victim of just having a bad offensive line than anything else. Give him a good offensive line, and the results will be much better, in my personal opinion. So, but anyway, let's get to the NFL mock draft here. My little mock draft. It's going to be a top 10 draft, not a whole first round draft. So here we go. So as I was saying before I read the comments, the Tennessee Titans got the number one pick. And like I said, I'm a big advocate. I would have traded down, maybe get as more picks as I possibly can to fill more needs. Seeing that the quarterback draft class next season in next year's draft at this time will be, in my opinion, better, more talent there. But anyway, here we go. The Titans, I do feel with the first pick are going to draft Cam Ward out of Miami, the quarterback. Now, they do need a QB. He's the best one in my opinion, stat wise, and has the most upside to be an NFL quarterback. Now, I could see it from both sides. My side being you want to trade down, get more picks, but on the other hand, looking at the Tennessee Titans situation, they're going to get a new stadium in a couple years. They want to sell tickets, and you do that by getting a quarterback. Look, they got Steve McNair, over 20 years ago, and you saw what he did for the Titans all those years. He was a great quarterback, Tennessee. So they may be looking at this as like, hey, we need our next Steve McNair. Now, I'm not saying Cam Ward's going to be the next Steve McNair. That is a mighty mighty big footsteps to fill, but they look at Cam Ward as a guy that could help this team get back to the top of the AFC South and be a competitor again in the NFL. And that's what I'm reading, that's what I'm seeing, and it feels like this is what the Titans are going to do. They're going to go with Cam Ward with the first pick. And again, I'm okay with that, but preferably I would like to see them trade down, get more picks, but I do understand why they want to do it so they can get their quarterback locked in and then build it from there. And it kind of reminds me of the situation with the Bucks back in 2015 where they drafted Jameis Winston. And then, they went from there, got offensive linemen. So it kind of feels similar to that. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. So I got Cam Ward, number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. Now the second pick is the Cleveland Browns. This is an interesting one. I've thought about this all day. I personally would take a quarterback here. Just because, again, you can't rely on Deshaun Watson. I mean, the guy's not going to play this year. Spare me the whole Deshaun saying that he's going to be better than ever. Like, please. It's over with. It's just over with. He's not coming back. He'll never be that guy. And the Cleveland Browns know that. Their owner even finally came out and said it was a bad contract. Like, yeah, no shit, you dumbass. That was the worst contract ever. Now you're paying the price for it. Now, I would draft a quarterback here, but I do have the Browns taking Abdul Carter, the defensive end, at number 2 from Penn State. Because then you have Myles Garrett on one side, Abdul on the other side. It would be a hell of a defense. And the one thing Cleveland, I will give them credit for, over the years, they've had great defenses. The problem is they just haven't been great on offense. So, but they're going to continue to improve that defense, and I'm all for it. So, I do think the Browns are going to draft Abdul Carter, defensive end from Penn State. So that is who I think the Browns will select at number 2. All right. Before we go any further, Corey King Brown's in the house on Facebook. Corey, hello. How you doing, Corey? Thanks for tuning in. Corey says, first round overall quarterback can never win a Super Bowl. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see if this class does. I don't know, but yeah, so we'll see what happens there. The third pick belongs to the New York Football Giants. And we all know that this offseason, they did go out and get not one quarterback, but 2 quarterbacks. The guy I did mention, Jameis Winston, signed as a free agent 2 years, I believe $8 million. Meanwhile, Russell Wilson is there for 1 year, $21 million. So you would think that, okay, they got their quarterbacks in place, but what if they drafted Shedeur? What if they took him? However, I don't see that happening. I think the Giants are going to rely on Russell Wilson, and I think that's where they're going to go somewhere else. I think they're going to grab Travis Hunter, the defensive back / wide receiver from Colorado. So they're going to go Travis Hunter with this third pick. And not bad. I mean, you do need a corner. You already got your defensive front with, Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence. So you got your front set up. Now you need your back end. And I know that sounds very weird, but that's the best way I could put it right now. So they're going to go with Travis Hunter, their defensive back from Colorado. And on offense, they do need a running back, but I don't think they're going to draft a running back that's high. There's some good ones in the draft. And you got Malik Neighbors, so they'll probably get the wide receiver are a lot in this draft. It's a wide receiver heavy draft as well as a deep running back draft as well. So they'll probably select those offensive players in the second round. So I do have the Giants getting Travis Hunter from Colorado at number 3. Blackie Lawless, thanks for tuning in, man. On Facebook, he says Browns could take Milroe in the second round. That's a possibility. I can definitely see that. He's been getting a lot of interest lately. Steelers are one of those teams that have been looking at him. A couple other teams. I think he's going to visit the Seahawks as well. So, yeah, there is some interest in Jalen Milroe. So we'll see where he lands come draft night. Either it's night 1, night 2. Should be very interesting. So with the 4th pick of the draft, the New England Patriots. Now Mike Vrabel's the new head coach for the Patriots. He is a defensive guy, and I don't see that changing. I got them drafting Mason Graham, the defensive lineman from Michigan, to bolster that defensive line. So Vrabel's going to have his footprint on that. So they're going to go Mason Graham, the defensive line from Michigan. Very good defensive player. Probably the second best defensive lineman in the draft next to Abdul Carter. So, yeah, and why not? It makes a lot of sense. So Patriots will grab Mason Graham from Michigan. Now, the number 5 pick belongs to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But before that, let me get to this comment from Tampa Bay Race fan on YouTube. Giants have Tracy as a running back. Questionable Hunter. Be another Peter Warwick. He's got the talent and the athleticism to do that. But again, what position does he play? I think he would be better defensively. It would be great to have a wide receiver type of guy play defense. He knows how to run routes like a wide receiver. He's played the position. He played both sides of the football. So you would have a guy like Travis Hunter. You put him defensively. Is probably what they would prefer. But who knows? Maybe they do use him offensively. Should be interesting. So with that being said, the 5th pick belongs to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, this is where I said I had a little surprise for you when I did this, that I would see a trade here. And I think we're going to have a trade here in this one. At least this is what I have. So bear with me. The Jaguars of Jacksonville, Duval, new head coach Liam Cohen, they are going to trade down to the 9th spot where the New Orleans Saints are at. And the New Orleans Saints are going to trade to move up to be that 6th pick. And with that being said, that 5th pick will now belong to the New Orleans Saints. And they're going to draft. Are you ready? They're going to draft Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, the quarterback. Now, why do I say that? Because there's been a lot of rumblings going on that the New Orleans Saints are looking into the quarterback position. And at some point, this team has to rebuild. They've been kicking that financial can down the road far too long. And we all know that Derek Carr can't stay healthy. He's just too inconsistent. He's had his moments in the NFL, but at some point, you got to look at the quarterback position. And Spencer Rattler, he's not that guy either. He's just not, in my opinion. this would make sense here. He plays in a dome, Superdome, and Shador's a very athletic quarterback, can make plays. And we forget, too, that, Shador played at Jackson State, which is in Mississippi, but it's in that area. So he's a very popular guy there. Played when Dion was there, coaching Jackson State. So this would make sense. And you got receivers, if they can stay healthy, if Chris Olave can stay healthy, you got a very good wide receiver. I think the Saints need to do this. Get a guy like Shador. And plus his popularity is, can bring the fans back in. It'll give the Saints their franchise QB, if you will. So, with Kellen Moore, the new head coach, the offensive coordinator with the Eagles last year, Super Bowl winning coordinator, Kellen Moore. I think this makes a lot of sense. And I would hate that because it's in my division, my Buccaneers. But it makes a lot of sense. Get a young guy that can, go through it and hopefully be your quarterback the next decade. So I do see the Saints moving up to get Shedeur Sanders at number 5. I just think it makes a lot of sense for Shedeur and the Saints, in my opinion. So let's see. Nathan Snell, thanks for tuning in, bud. How you doing tonight, sir? He says, interesting. Thank you. Blackie Lawless, Saints really like Sanders. Yeah. And there's been a lot of rumblings around. And Shedeur would be a great fit. He'd play indoors with his, athleticism. And, he can make plays. He's not the tallest guy, but the guy can move around out of the pocket. And, again, Derek Carr is not your future, in my opinion. They thought he would be, but he's just not. And Radler, I just don't think he's a guy that can be an NFL starting quarterback. I think he could be a good backup, but Shedeur has more upside, in my personal opinion. So that's what I think is going to happen. The Saints are going to move up to the 5th spot with Jacksonville, trade for him, and they will pick up Shedeur Sanders at number 5. Jim Melvin, thanks for tuning in, man. How you doing tonight, Jim? If the Saints get Sanders at number 9, that will be incredible. Well, no, the Saints are going to move up to number 5 to trade for him. They're going to trade up with the Jags to get him. That's, if I didn't make that clear before, I apologize. I have the Saints. The Jaguars have the 5th pick, but the Saints are going to move up the trade with Jacksonville for that pick in my mock draft. And they're going to pick Shedeur Sanders. So that's where I'm going with that, Jim. Nate goes, who does he have to throw the ball? Well, like I said, if Olave can stay healthy, Shaheed, another receiver, solid receiver, who, stepped up pretty nicely last year. They can stay healthy. That's the key. They got to stay healthy. They do that. He's got a couple good receivers. So yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense. At least to me, it makes a lot of sense. With that being said, let's move on to the 6th pick, and that's owned by the Las Vegas Raiders. Before we do that, let's get another comment from YouTube. Zagnif Productions, our good friend. Zagnif, what's good? Benny Blanco. Oh, I like that one. Appreciate the Benny Blanco reference there. Zagnif. Next tune in, by the way. The Raiders have the 6th pick of the NFL draft, 2025. And this one's been getting a lot of steam lately. This pick has been picking up a lot of steam, but this also makes a lot of sense to me. You just signed Geno Smith. You got Abdullah as the wide receiver. You got Brock Bowers, probably one of the best tight ends in the league. Yes, he was a rookie, but still, amazing rookie season. What do you need? Besides an offensive line, you need a good offensive line as well. You need a running back. Remember how you just let Josh Jacobs go in free agency? He only helped Green Bay to a great season in the playoffs. So what do? Well, you draft the best running back in the NFL draft. And I got the Raiders taking Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. That's right. He's going to be a Raider. And this would be a great move. You need a. Now, I know running backs normally a little too high to pick there, but looking at what the Raiders want to do, Pete Carroll wants to run the football. And he knows that in Seattle, even though he's a defensive guy, he knows in Seattle he has to have a good offense. And his offenses were good, not just because of Russell Wilson, but and a good offensive line. But he also had a running back. He had Marshawn Lynch. He had Marshawn. And I feel like, at least the Raiders feel like they have their next Marshawn Lynch. Will he be as good as Marshawn? I don't know. But they need a running back. Jahir White's not the guy. So I got the Raiders taking Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. It makes a lot of sense. And Tampa Bay Rays fan agrees with me there. It does make sense. Give Geno a guy that can run the ball. Help him out. You're going to have Brock Bowers. He's a good blocking tight end as well. So this makes a lot of sense to me. I got Jeanty going to the Raiders. And it's going to make that offense more dynamic. And it's going to be able to compete in that division because it's a tough division. The Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, they got to compete offensively. So getting Ashton Jeanty is going to help that cause. So the Raiders, I got them taking Ashton Jeanty from Boise State at number 6. Tampa Bay's Rays fan 2008 says, re-signing Kamara was a mistake. Another Loomis special. Yeah. Especially after the whole bar incident, nightclub incident, Super Bowl weekend, where he punched a guy. And his production's dropped off lately too. So, yeah. But, this is a running back heavy draft. So I do think the Saints are going to take a running back at this point in the draft. Christopher Cole says, I don't see the Saints passing on offensive linemen or defensive line. Maybe, but again, I think the idea and the thought of having their next franchise quarterback in Shedeur, I think makes more sense. But they do need to get a good offensive line. And I just feel like this is just my opinion. I think they're going to take Shedeur. They're going to trade up to get him. I think they feel that's more important right now. Because again, they got to rebuild at some point. They somehow find ways to spend money, but then they just don't get anything out of it. At this point, they need to cut out any hopes of trying to win a Super Bowl, rebuild, and with the next few years, get back there, you'll have a team again. So this is why I think they're going to trade up to get a quarterback. And it makes a lot of sense. Zagnif says, Zamir White, Zeus, we called him at Georgia, was a great 3 and short back, easy money, but he wasn't the load carrier. that went to Cook. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, Zamir's he's not a number one. And they thought that when he got drafted a couple years ago, along with and they had Josh Jacobs, it'd be a good, nice 1-2 punch, and eventually Zamir would become that number one guy. But it's clear to me he's not the guy. He's had injuries as well, so to me, this is a no-brainer. They're going to draft Ashton Genty. And also another comment from Zagnev. The Raiders draft Genty and put Zeus as a short range back. I think you definitely see a difference in the run game. I agree. I do agree with that. Gives you a nice 1-2 punch that they definitely need. And again, they got to compete offensively with great offenses in that division: the Chiefs, Broncos, and the Chargers. So, they got to compete offensively. But I get it. He's all they've got for now. Yeah. Because they got to upgrade the running back position for sure. And Nathan Snell on Facebook says, so what do you do with Derek Carr's contract? Well, I think after this year, 2025, I think it's no longer guaranteed. So it's a unique spot to be in because Derek Carr, maybe this motivates him to play better. But again, can we trust him? I don't trust him. I think he still should go after draft Shedeur. He can sit for a little bit. Yes, I understand it's a top 5 pick, and normally you would have to have him start day one. But if the Saints, let's say they get off to an 0-3, 0-4 start, or a 1-4 start, then you finally put Shedeur in. The Patriots did that with Drake May last year when they benched Brissett after a while. They weren't going anywhere. Drake May came in, took his lumps, but toward the end of the year, he got better and better. Picked up the game pretty quickly. And you could see the same thing happen with Shedeur. So I don't think Derek Carr is going to be that guy, in my opinion. So this is why you draft Shedeur. So, and plus, like I said, I believe Derek Carr's guaranteed money is up at the end of the season, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, you're going to have to keep him for at least another year. But I think, you got to start planning ahead now and wait until next year, in my opinion, if you're the Saints. All right. So we are now at the number 7 spot that belongs to the New York Jets. In case anybody just tuned in, I'm doing a little mini mock draft. It's just going to be a top 10 here. It's not going to be an entire first round, just the top 10, because I don't want to bore everybody. And plus, we're already at near the 41-minute mark of the show, so forgive me, but I'd be going all night if I did that. And I know I don't want to go all night. I don't know if you want to stay up all night on YouTube or Facebook to watch. I know people got to go to sleep. So, and believe me, I don't want to put anybody to sleep. So bear with me here. We're at number 7 now with the New York Jets. We all know the Jets last year, disaster. I mean, let's face it, it's always been a disaster with this franchise. Last how many number of years? You haven't been really relevant since the Mark Sanchez, Darrelle Revis days. So, that was like in the late 2000s, early 2010s. So this is an interesting picture. Now they just signed Justin Fields 2 years, $40 million. You got Tyrod Taylor, the backup there. And the Jets, they got playmakers already. You got Garrett Wilson there. So you got that Ohio State connection with Fields and Garrett Wilson. You got Breece Hall, the running back. But you do have a questionable offensive line that's not good. So this is why I got the Jets at number 7, taking Armand Membo, the offensive tackle from Missouri. Very good offensive lineman, probably the best one in the draft. And he definitely a good run blocker, um, good at pass protection. He could do it all. So you want to get somebody that can protect Justin Fields, but also, give running room for Brees and the other running backs on the Jets. So going with Membu from Missouri makes a lot of sense to me. Uh, that's who I have as the Jets taking at number 7, a offensive tackle, uh, Armand Membu at number 7. All right, the number 8 pick belongs to the Carolina Panthers, and last year was a struggle early on, but they picked it up toward the end of the year. Bryce Young started, got benched, then he came back in, and he played better. There's a lot of ways they can go here, but I do have the Panthers taking Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU. Another great offensive tackle who's good in pass protection. Um, can hold his own in the trenches. This would be a good pick for Carolina. Again, they need somebody to protect the quarterback, which you always need to. But Carolina could use more quality offensive linemen on that team. So Will Campbell makes a lot of sense here. I got him going at number 8 for Carolina. All right, the number 9 pick, which was the New Orleans Saints pick, but as I said earlier, in my mock draft, I got them trading up to the 5 spot where Jacksonville was picking. So this is where Jacksonville will pick now at number 9. And again, this is kind of the Trevor Lawrence rebuilding project. This is Liam Cohen, the first year head coach, coming over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the OC for the Bucs last year. Now, you would think, okay, got to get an offensive lineman, right? But they need a playmaker, and they really don't have those on Jacksonville. So this is where I am going with my pick here for number 9. They're going to go out and get a wide receiver. And I got them taking, I'm going to butcher the name, but Tataria McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. Now, he's considered the best wide receiver in the draft as far as stats, most upside. And they want to get a playmaker for Trevor Lawrence, a guy that can run his routes very well. He's got speed, down the field. So this makes a lot of sense. Liam Cohen's trying to get that next, Mike Evans type of player. This is more like a Chris Godwin kind of player, knows how to run routes very well. So this does make a lot of sense. So I'm going to go with the Jaguars taking Tataroa McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona. And now you got somebody for Trevor Lawrence to throw the ball to. So we'll see how that offense turns out. Should be good. Zagnif looking for Evans in Jacksonville. Yeah, that's right. That's what Liam's doing. He knows. He knows he needs to get a receiver for Trevor. I mean, McMillan's not the issue. It's Trevor Lawrence. Can he try and get Trevor to be that quarterback that, the 2022 version, which was his best year? Personally, I don't know. I've never been a fan of Trevor Lawrence, but Liam Cohen feels like, hey, if he could do it with Baker Mayfield, he could do it with Trevor. So we'll see how it plays out. But I got him drafting a receiver at number 9. And then finally, for my 10th pick, it's the Chicago Bears, who, had that good start, but then that Washington game with the Hail Mary and they just never recovered. And you know, now they went into the offseason, got a new head coach, Ben Johnson, the OC from Detroit, and they in the offseason traded and signed free agent linemen to protect Caleb Williams. And I thought they low key had a great offseason. Bears did. They made the right signings. So now it seems like your offense is set with DJ Moore, Roma Duze, Swift as your running back. Now they're going to work on the defense. So with that being said, I got the Bears actually going with the defensive end here. I'm going with Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. You already got Montez Sweat, and so you boost your front lineup, your front seven, get Shamar Stewart, and to me, he's very fast. Could beat a lot of offensive linemen off the line. Very explosive, and they need something like that defensively, too, because you got a division where you got Jared Goff, Jordan Love. So, you need a defensive end that can get to the quarterbacks. And I feel like Shamar Stewart's that guy. I think this is a good pick for the Bears. Go defense here. I'm sure they're going to get some more linemen, but they made some signings in the offseason, made trades for one. They traded one with the Rams. So, I think they're set there. Now they can work on their defense. So at number 10, I got the Bears selecting Shamar Stewart, defensive end, Texas A&M. And with that being said, that is my top 10. But before I, go over the list again, let me read a comment here from TB Race Fan. There he is. Or I'm sorry, this is Zagnev Productions. Sorry, there's Zagnev. The Bears just need to get all the picks past number 10 and draft O-line en masse. Yeah. Yeah, and again, they signed a couple of offensive linemen in the offseason. They traded for one, too. So that will definitely help this Bears team out. Now, again, I just did a mini mock draft, top 10 only. So I'll go over it one more time. I got the Titans taking Cam Ward, quarterback from Miami, number 1. And number 2, I got the Browns taking that Bill Carter, the defensive end from Penn State. Number 3, I got the Giants taking Travis Hunter, defensive back / wide receiver from Colorado. Number 4, I got the Patriots taking Mason Graham, defensive lineman from Michigan. Number 5, I got the Jaguars trading down with the New Orleans Saints. The Saints will pick number 5 and take Shedeur Sanders, quarterback from Colorado. Number 6, the Raiders, I got them selecting Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boise State. Number 7, the New York Jets, I got them taking Armand Membo, offensive tackle from Missouri. And number 8, I got Carolina Panthers taking Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU. Number 9, which was the Saints pick, now it's the Jaguars since they traded down. I got them taking I'm going to screw the name up. Tetrioa McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona. And at number 10, I got the Chicago Bears taking Shamar Stewart, the defensive end from Texas A&M. So those are my picks, my top 10. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Those the right picks? Are they good picks? Are they fits for those teams? I'll read some comments here. I got back on Facebook, Jim Melvin saying running back, as we all know, is the most difficult position to gouge. Who would have seen Bucky Irving at the best running back? I think this is why teams are hesitant to go low with them. Yeah, but I mean, Bucky, sometimes it's about the fit, Jim, and the fit was good for the Bucs, the way they, their style of offense. So Jeanty, I think, has more upside. He's more of a top NFL starting running back. Bucky's good. He's really good, and I'm glad we got him. I don't regret drafting him because I think he's great. But as far as the upside, for the Raiders, it's a need, and he fits the mold there. So they're going to take a chance at him. And then Jim says, shouldn't overlook edge lineman Donovan Ziroku of Boston College. He's my bold prediction for the Bucks. That's a pretty good pick as well. I got them taking Jahad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama, because eventually you're going to have to replace Levante. He did resign for another year, but you just don't know how much longer he's going to play. So getting a guy like Campbell makes a lot of sense. So that's who I got our Bucks drafting. And the Bucks, they're drafting at 19. So that's who I got. That's pretty much all I got for this week, or this episode at least. As far as any NFL news, the Colts, they cut Matt Gay, former Bucks and Rams kicker, Super Bowl winning kicker, Matt Gay, when he was with the Rams. Colts cut him with 2 years remaining on his contract. So that's a very interesting move there. Since the Colts are probably going to be looking for a kicker maybe in the draft. Or unless they get Pat McAfee back, but that's not going to happen. But that is kind of a surprise as far as any NFL news going on there. We still haven't heard anything from Aaron Rodgers, which, surprise, he's that, that girl, that 20-year-old girl holding out, playing the field, literally. So my gut feeling is he's going to sign with Pittsburgh. That's still my gut feeling. I think they'll end up getting married to each other, and Aaron Rodgers will be a Steeler. Just a matter of when. So, Tampa Bay Rays fan says, rest in peace to Octavio Dotel, former MLB pitcher. Yes. Yeah, we had some really sad news this week. For those who don't know, I believe it was in the Dominican Republic. There was a roof that collapsed at a nightclub, and it had Dotel in there. He died unfortunately on his way to the hospital. I know another major league pitcher, former pitcher, was there as well. He passed away from that. So very, very sad. Unfortunately, yes, definitely rest in peace, Octavio. Played for my Dodgers, with the White Sox. I believe it was the Astros as well. Played for some teams. He was a solid utility pitcher. Just a shame that what happened. Just gone too soon. Rest in peace. And to everybody that was involved in that unfortunate accident. My condolences to them. So thank you for that comment, Tampa Bay Ray fan. Appreciate that. Jim Melvin says, great show, Ben. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you tuning in on Facebook. And I might as well just rant for a minute about my wonderful Manchester United team who had a 2-1 lead against Lyon this afternoon in the first leg of the Europa semifinal. And of course, in grand fashion, they give up a late goal. Onana was heavily criticized by the British press about how he's statistically one of the worst Manchester United goalies in the history of Manchester United Football Club. And of course, he gave up a late goal to end in a draw. Now, real quick, Zagnif Production says, great, good stuff, broski. Thank you, Mr. Zagnif. Appreciate that, sir. Yeah, just running on my Manchester United team now. Right now, they're playing in the Europa semifinal. It's the first leg, and the score ended up 2-2. So it'll be 2-2 in the Arget going into the second leg. Now I had Manchester United held on for the 2-1 victory. All they needed was a tie in the next match, and they would move on to the Europa final. But now we got to sweat it out. And by the way, this is the only way they can get back into European competition next year is if they win the Europa. So because we're nowhere near the top 4 or 5 in the Premier League table, so that's out the window. Um, so yeah, it was disappointing to watch. I saw a lot of that game today. We had the 2-1 lead. Xerxes had a great goal, late. Bruno set one up. Bruno Fernandes set one nice pass to him on a header with the 2-1 lead. Yano got one before the end of the first half. And that late goal, just what a killer, man. So anyway, I'm just ranting on my Manchester United. That's my rant. Manchester United rant. So the second leg will happen next Thursday at Old Trafford. So see what happens there. And then Sunday we got to go to Newcastle, play Newcastle United. They're trying to be in the top 5 and play in the European competition next year. So, so it's a big game either way for both teams. Well, with that being said, everybody, I think I'm done for the night. So again, tonight's episode was a little mini mock draft, NFL mock draft, as we edge closer to the NFL draft, which in the next couple weeks. Cannot wait for that. It should be a very interesting draft because there's a lot of like teams that are looking for different things. We think that they might draft this person, but it's not really as predictable as we think. And that's why I'm kind of excited about this draft. Just a lot of unpredictability. So I cannot wait to watch it. My next episode, as Christopher Cole mentioned, WrestleMania 41 is coming around in a couple weeks, or actually a little over a week away. So I'll probably talk a lot of wrestling on my next episode. We'll preview that. And, if there's any more NFL news, we will definitely break that to you. We'll talk baseball, NBA. Luka had his return to Dallas last night, which is good. He had 45 points. I want to thank Dallas for them trading Luka to us. Appreciate that. Got to suck for those Mavericks fans, but Luka's ours now, so yay. On that note, everybody, thank you for tuning in. And once again, follow me on X at BennyBoy702. Also on my YouTube channel, Ben Cornett 9015. Give me a like, follow, and share. I greatly appreciate that. And please, guys, be in the comments on YouTube. That helps my channel out a lot. We appreciate that. And on Facebook, in the Ben Zone Facebook group, I'm on there as well. And also Instagram at Ben702 forever. Oh, by the way, I'm on Threads on Instagram as well. I just started that this week, or late last week. So check me out there. And we got one more comment from Zagnif saying that fans love Luka here so much they booed the ref that ejected them earlier this week. Yeah, that's right, the night before. Yeah, and that was a crappy call by the refs. Come on, refs, really? I don't know. That was not right, in my opinion. So, with that being said, everybody, I'm going to take off. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. And we'll see you next time right here on Have At It. Have a good night, everybody.